Okay, so today we're talking about eating for sun protection. I'm a licensed naturopathic doctor, and my practice is Human Nature, located in Madison, Wisconsin. I give this talk today in coordination with the Willie Street Co-op, where I also give one-on-one nutrition sessions for $55. So there's a handful of sessions available every month at the East and the West locations, and also via Zoom. So you can contact me if you want to schedule an individual consult. Every month I give one of these free programs. In August, I hope you'll join me for a talk about food-based cleansing on the 27th at noon. This talk is for health education reasons only and should not be taken in place of medical advice. If you have any questions, please put them in the chat and we'll have some time at the end. Okay, so today's talk should be short and sweet. We're just going to talk about the benefits of the sunlight, of which there are many, but a focus on UV light, which of course can create oxidative stress to the skin and result in issues with wrinkles or sunburns or other signs of inflammation and aging. So we'll talk about all the benefits you get from the sunlight first and kind of the nature of our interaction with the UV light. And then the second part of the talk will be focused on the main nutrients that you can eat that help protect your skin from those problems with the UV light. So the sun is a full spectrum of energy. This is a figure that shows you that the spectrum of energy, natural energy. Visible light is the sunlight that we see, and you can see it's broken into the rainbow spectrum. There's also a lot of infrared or red light that comes naturally from the sun, as well as UV light, which also is not very visible to us, which comes from the sun and gives us many health benefits. I gave a much longer talk earlier this spring about the benefits of full spectrum sunlight. So if you want to learn more about that, you can check that out on my website. There's a whole series of videos from April. If you go to humannaturellc.com and click on the news tab, you'll see all of my previous webinar videos. And if you look at the excerpts from April, you'll see the deeper dive into the different benefits. I encourage you to check it out because there's a lot of new studies constantly coming out about the benefits of light for our health. And I just find it fascinating. And you can learn more there. So today I want to talk about just stressing a couple of reasons why it's important to go in the sun. Of course, most people are conscious about vitamin D, but just to highlight some key things about vitamin D, which is something we make when we're in the sunlight, is that it helps keep our barriers strong. So it helps keep barriers that protect us from viruses strong, for example, like the barrier through our whole gut lining and in our mucosal lining up in our upper respiratory system. It also keeps the barrier to our brain strong so that we're less susceptible to cognitive decline and other inflammatory things that might affect our mental health. Scientists have shown that having adequate levels of vitamin D protect against mental illness, cognitive decline, heart attack, stroke, death, cancer, autoimmunity, high blood pressure, diabetes, chronic pain, muscular weakness. So there are many, many benefits to vitamin D. I have a whole nother talk that goes into the benefits of vitamin D if you want to learn more about that. But one of the key takeaways I want to stress about vitamin D that I don't think people realize is that the vitamin D that you make from being in UV light, which you're going to get when you're out in the middle of the day when the light is strongest, is much more useful than taking a supplement of vitamin D. And a lot of this work was spearheaded by a doctor named Alexander Wunsch. You can watch his academic recordings on YouTube. And he points out that an oral or like a vitamin D supplement that you might take is distributed differently in your body and breaks down much faster than vitamin D that you essentially photosynthesize by being in the sun and your body can store for much longer. So the vitamin D that you make from being in the sun, you have to go out in the sunlight to make it or use a vitamin D light inside, which would be a UV light, is going to get to where you need it in the body much more than taking a supplement or even getting it in a food-based form. And one of the studies I read that I think illustrates this point is this one, where they looked at giving women, they had different groups of women, and some of the women made their vitamin D by being in light, UV light, and some of them took a vitamin D supplement. At the end of the study, they found all had higher vitamin D levels, but the women who made their vitamin D by being in the sun actually had a much healthier gut microbiota. So their gut biome really benefited from being in the sunlight. And so there's a whole group of research studies looking at this and showing this, but I wanted to at least highlight this study that shows that there are some nuances to being in the sunlight, and there are some benefits happening that I think we're just understanding the tip of. Another thing that's really beneficial from being in the light, being in sunlight, especially bright, direct sunlight, is nitric oxide. So there's beneficial nitric oxide in the body. We make it when we're in the UV light, the UVA part of the spectrum to be more specific. And it really helps us with circulation to our fingers and toes. So like in my clinical practice, when people have problems with circulation or numbness to their toes and fingers, working with them on beneficial nitric oxide is often really helpful. Nitric oxide is very important to our brain, and scientists and medical doctors are using it as a treatment for Alzheimer's. It promotes mental health, it promotes heart health, it enhances people's athletic and exercise performance, it improves and speeds healing, it reduces ED and reduces high blood pressure. So lots of benefits for nitric oxide. And nitric oxide, this is just a study showing that nitric oxide is something we can make. You don't necessarily have to take a supplement for it. You just need to go out in the sun more. So I hope with this brief introduction, I've illustrated that the UV end of the spectrum is really great. There's a lot of great things about it. Without it, we can't make vitamin D and we can't make beneficial nitric oxide. However, it does present an oxidative stress. And if someone does not have enough antioxidants available in their body, then they might have more issues being in the sunlight. In full spectrum sunlight, the red end of the spectrum, which I showed you in that diagram that we started with, the near infrared, actually protects us from the trade-offs of the UVN. So we, some people say we actually are designed to be outside. Most living things are like us, where we really benefit from this full spectrum because it is very balanced when you're in full balanced light. So just to call this out, a lot of the studies showing the danger of light are done in a lab, simulating UV light, not in studies of people actually going outside and being in the sun. So I think what scientists are beginning to learn is that full spectrum sunlight actually is pretty good for us. That's not to say that in every situation people need to be in the sun all the time. Obviously there's going to be some people who that may present a health challenge for them, but I'm hoping to give you some tips about how you can boost your resiliency in the sun in order to get a lot more of the benefits of being out in the sun longer. Here's an example of a study showing that scientists are kind of changing their mind about how skin cancer develops. This was a big survey published in 2018 that showed that malignant melanoma actually does not seem to come from people being in the sun and getting sunburns. It seems more correlated with their lack of vitamin D. So this study was really surprising to me because, of course, it kind of flies in the face of everything we've been taught about going in the sun and the sun causing skin cancer. So just trying to point out that there's a lot of new studies that are coming out that are showing that the situation is more complicated than we think, and that sunlight is actually a lot better for us than a lot of professionals previously thought. And so what's coming out of this is that sunlight actually is very safe and beneficial for the majority of people. However, too much sunlight at once can lead to a lot of oxidative problems. So oxidation is the process whereby our skin cells, for example, lose their natural ionic activity. They are aging, they are breaking down much faster than normal. So when you're in a lot of sun, if your system isn't fortified with antioxidants to sort of quench that activity, there's going to be faster oxidation and faster aging. And certainly sunburns are a sign of that. Wrinkles, different inflammatory skin responses are a common sign of overexposure to the sun. So now I want to talk about the different strategies that you can take in your lifestyle that can help make you more resilient to the sun. These may not be strategies that like overnight translate to much more resilience, but if you can adopt these lifestyle habits, definitely over several months and years, you will be likely to see that you're burning less, your sun tolerance is better, your recovery to being in the sun is better than it was. So the first of these is increasing omega-3 rich foods. The second is just basic categorization of avoiding inflammatory foods, and I'll go into that more and what that means. And then the third would be specific foods that specifically help the skin health because of their high antioxidant load. So for the first area, I want to talk about omega-3s. This is a study, an older study actually published in 1995, showing that people that took fish oil had less sunburns. So it's true. It does appear that when people take in more fish or seafood or more fish oil and increase their omega-3 to their omega-6 ratio, that they're less susceptible to damage from the sun. And there is a way that you can test your omega-3 levels at home. People that work with me can get access to this test, which is about $49, where you could check your omega-3 levels at home. If you kind of want to see, how am I doing? Is this something I should do? There's many benefits to eating more omega-3s that go way beyond skin health. You certainly don't have to test, though. Just eating fish or seafood daily, or on days you don't eat fish or seafood, taking a 1,200 milligram DHA supplement can be very helpful. So the next piece was about avoiding foods that cause inflammation. And it is true, it has been shown that people who have more inflammation, like people with an autoimmune disease, people with chronic inflammation, people with a suppressed immune system that are prone to cancer, are much more likely, in a lot of cases, to be more vulnerable to sun damage. And so this slide is meant to be kind of an overview of some key pieces that I work with people on reducing inflammation overall, and would certainly apply to people in that group. Those groups of people who have more issues with their immune system and thus their skin's response to the sun, but certainly anybody looking to improve their health for any reason would probably benefit from thinking about these concepts and how they apply to you, and maximizing your nutrition. So the first one is lowering your insulin levels. Insulin is a hormone which we make when we eat carbohydrates to allow us to get the sugar into our cells. But insulin promotes a lot of inflammation. So one tactic in the diet is just to reduce carbohydrates overall to a moderate level where you're able to use the carbohydrates you're eating. So the other part of the coin is, the more muscle you've got, the lower your insulin level is going to be, because muscle likes to eat a lot of carbohydrates and sugars. That's our main, the main user in our body. So if you work avidly on building more muscle, you will improve your carbohydrate tolerance. So I talk more about this in another webinar, which I'll point out in a minute. But I just wanted to at least highlight that that's one approach to reducing inflammation. The second, of course, I already covered. Increasing omega-3s across the board helps lower a whole host of risk for inflammatory diseases, and those with diseases helps reduce the severity of symptoms. So that's a great tool for anybody to use. The third tip would be to avoid common immune triggers. So there's certain foods that are more common allergens and more likely to promote chronic inflammation in the body. And I call those out and identify those in my book, which was published 2 years ago, called The Body Tune-Up. And it talks about a 6-week program where you eliminate those foods in order to reduce inflammation. The fourth point here is to eat foods that are rich in polyphenols, which we're going to spend some time talking about today. For our health overall, the polyphenol-rich foods really help feed good gut bacteria. And if you've got a good, healthy gut biome, then your chances of having inflammation are going to be chronic inflammation are going to be low. Short-term inflammation is good. It's a good thing for us. It's a natural thing to become inflamed when we encounter a stressor, but we want that inflammation to go away and get resolved very quickly and not become our chronic state. Finally, the fifth point is about mitochondrial health, and there's a number of things that help with inflammation when our mitochondria are strong. Mitochondria are the little organelles inside our cells that help us respond to stress, that help kill an unhealthy cell, that help the cell to create more energy when it needs to. And so the things that support mitochondrial health would be proper hydration, having plenty of muscle, working on muscle building, eating a very low carb or ketogenic diet, eating a lot of omega-3s, and going out in the proper light, the proper sunlight. So I talk all about these 5 different parts of reducing inflammation through diet in a series of videos I released in June. So you can check those out on my website if you want to learn more about any of those. For today, I'm going to move on and talk a little bit more specifically about things that have been shown that help to reduce damage to the skin from the sun. And I found this one to be really interesting. This was a study done with lab animals that found that when they ate outside of a healthy circadian rhythm, they were more likely to get sunburns and wrinkles and skin cancer. So basically, there's a whole new field of science that's been launched in probably the last 10 years, talking about how important it is to fast at night and to be sleeping at night and have a healthy circadian rhythm, which is basically a rhythm that follows the natural world and allows our different body systems to create a daily rhythm. So you eat your meals at about the same time. You wake up at about the same time. You go to bed at about the same time. You don't work in the middle of the night or eat a meal in the middle of the night, for example. And so this study actually found that the lab animals that didn't eat overnight, they ate within a normal feeding window, were much less likely to experience inflammation from the sun. So I think there's a lot more studies that's needed on this. It hasn't been done on people yet, to my knowledge. This is just done on lab animals. But I think it's interesting to think about how important having that healthy circadian rhythm is. And a lot of other studies show that for people, that translates to not eating after supper and fasting until breakfast time. So having a fast of at least 12 to 14 hours for most people is really beneficial for reducing inflammation. And it turns out it might actually really help with having healthy skin and having skin that's less reactive to the sun. The next thing I want to talk about is polyphenols. Polyphenols are plant or food chemicals, because they're not always found in plants, but a lot of them are, that help feed healthy bacteria, but also have different actions in our bodies. So polyphenols are like a class of antioxidants that come from our food that give us a lot of health benefits. And this study was an overview that was published in 2010 showing that natural polyphenols from our foods can actually act like sunscreen. And so here's some examples of some of the common polyphenols that have been shown to do this. Milk thistle is a plant that has an extract that most people might be familiar with milk thistle as being good for the liver. But the polyphenols are actually also good for reducing skin damage. And you can get like a milk thistle powder, Like you could get the seeds and put them in a smoothie or have a tea. So those are more common ways to take milk thistle. Resveratrol is a very popular polyphenol that acts as an antioxidant. There are so many different benefits from resveratrol. I could probably have a whole talk about it. Bone health, hormone health, immune health, uh, respiratory health, gut health, but skin health too. And you can get resveratrol naturally in grapes or get it from an extract of Japanese knotweed, for example, like a tincture or powder, and add it to different beverages. And finally, proanthocyanidins are the dark pigments that are found in berries. And those are another example of the common polyphenols that they're talking about that have the potential to act like sunscreen. So now I want to zero in on some specific polyphenols that you can look for in your food or maybe even in supplements when you're looking for extra skin protection, or if overall you just want to upgrade your diet to offer some more skin protection. Astaxanthin is probably one of the best. A 10-week study showed that taking a supplement helped protect people from skin damage. You can get astaxanthin from spirulina and chlorella, which are microalgae. What I have pictured here on the left are little chlorella tabs. I actually like to eat these as a snack. They're kind of in a rotation in my afternoon snack. They do taste pretty green. So depending on how comfortable you are with that, like grass green, pond water type flavor, you might want to have them in something like is pictured on the right, like a green drink where they're blended in with other things and there's mint, and maybe like a natural sweetener like monk fruit to help it taste a little better. But those would be one example of a way to naturally get more astaxanthin to help reduce your susceptibility to skin damage when you're out in the sun. Other common sources of astaxanthin would be shrimp and salmon, another seafood. So you're getting not only the omega-3s, but you're getting the astaxanthin. You could also get a supplement and take it, for example, during times of higher need. So you know you're going to be out in the sun all day or on the water all day. That might be a great example of a time when you might take a supplement to help support your body in reducing the amount of damage done by the sun. Another favorite one where there's been a lot of research is EGCG, which comes from green tea and is called epigallocatechin gallate. Um, so it's a mouthful. We'll just call it EGCG. But one of the cool things about this, there are many, many benefits from EGCG. But one of the cool benefits from the skin is that scientists have shown that it appears to allow the expression of genes for skin moisturizing and free radical scavenging. So that's how it protects us from the sun. Like I said, the main food source is green tea, but you can also get it from berries like blackberries and cranberries. So small amounts of EGCG are found in other types of teas, in kiwis, cherries, pears, peaches, apples, avocados, and also some nuts. You can also get an EGCG powder or capsule if you prefer those ways, if you're really trying to optimize the antioxidant support. Again, that might just be situational. Um, in general, it's pretty safe to take antioxidant supplements, but there is a phenomena where you could take too much. It doesn't happen very much, and the way to measure that would be like in a C-reactive protein test, which is a basic measure for inflammation in the body. So I've never encountered anybody who's taken too much antioxidants before. But just since we're on the topic, I thought I would mention it, that it is a thing. And so you don't necessarily want to be piling on antioxidants every single day of the year. You do want to allow some inflammation of your body. So these would be things that would be good to get through food, of course, daily. That's very safe. And if you're going to take antioxidant supplements, you want to take it under the direction of a practitioner, or rotate them, or only take them during times of higher need, like I said, like a day at the beach. Lycopene is the next polyphenol I want to talk about, and it's very common in watermelon and tomatoes. Here is a study where they showed that it basically reduced the amount of inflammation in the skin and reduced the amount of skin photo damage and photo aging. The next group of foods that are very important would be ones that are in the vitamin A group. And I say that because there are different types, different sources of vitamin A related foods. So beta carotenoids are the vegetable source or the plant-based source of vitamin A foods, such as carrots is kind of the common um, thought, or like another orange vegetable would be high in vitamin A. And vitamin A is really important for the skin. It helps with the turnover of the skin cells, so basically helps rejuvenate the skin when it does encounter different stressors, and just with whatever your skin cells daily needs are, vitamin A is very important. And lutein and zeaxanthin are two beta carotenoids, so they're kind of in the vitamin A group, and they're very high in some foods, and they seem to be very important. So we tend to think of lutein and zeaxanthin as being really important for eye health. If you're someone who's struggled with eye health, you might already be taking a supplement with these, but actually studies showed that these help with reducing sunburns and protecting the skin from the sun also. So foods that are rich in these polyphenols are broccoli and peas. Also, things like kale are a great way to get these in your diet. What a lot of people don't realize about vitamin A is that there's a subset of people who cannot take the vegetable source of vitamin A and convert it to the fat-based source of vitamin A that the skin or the rest of the body really needs. And so for that reason, it's very important to eat animal foods that are high in vitamin A also. So fish and seafood are a great example of animal-based vitamin A foods. Eggs are another example of a food that's high in that fat-based vitamin A that you otherwise might not get from your diet. And not so popular, but liver or other organ meats are a great way to get vitamin A and many other nutrients into the diet. And these are more taboo, I think, in recent generations than they used to be. The way that I prepare this at home is I cut them into tiny little bite-sized pieces and then dehydrate them. Honestly, I got into doing that because I started doing it for my pet, and then I was like, this is actually pretty good. I could eat liver this way. So I find that to be an easy way to take liver, because it's not like you're sitting down to like a big plate or a big serving of liver. You can just have a little bit and get the nutritional benefits. And it might be a lot cheaper than buying a bottle of pills, but you can get like liver capsules and take it that way too. Other people like to make like a liver pate, and then spread that on their vegetables or other things. So there's different ways that you can try organ meats for the health benefits if you're not familiar. All right, so that's a summary of what I have for you today. Like I said, it was going to be kind of a short and sweet program. You want to think about emphasizing those omega-3 foods. You want to think about emphasizing all those colorful foods that are rich in the antioxidants, and then keep in the back of your mind all the different things that are so good for helping your body manage inflammation in your diet overall.